G'day folks, Daniel from Sure Solar here today. We're on site here with Alan and Sharon, and we're going to be talking today through the process and buying stages of what we've got here is actually quite a unique system. We've got a 15 kilowatt of inverter capacity across 2 phases. We've got about 60 kilowatts of battery storage capacity, and we have 20 kilowatts of solar inverters. Now, it's a little bit unique. We had some challenges with this particular project because we've got 2 phases. It's basically we've got one inverter on one single phase with this battery pack here, and we've also got a battery bank which has 2 inverters on one incoming line of electricity, which has a dual battery setup, so it can get quite complicated. Thank you so much, Alan and Sharon, for having a chat to me today. I know that it's been a pretty big project for you guys, and we've had it hasn't gone completely smoothly. We've had a couple of challenges which we've overcome. So I just want to give some people a bit of an understanding of what the process is like for you. Just want to get an understanding of how you guys started to look into solar and how you found the whole process and some of the questions that you might have asked.
Sure. I think, like everybody else, the price of power is that initial step that sort of puts you into that mode of what can I do to reduce the cost of my energy. And initially we sought 3 quotes, of which Sure Solar was one of them. And like the money, the quotes, there was very little between. So pretty much the market must understand what the rates are. So no differentiators there. But with Sure Solar, we actually were intending on supporting a company that was more local to us because price wasn't really a differential. However, Nick, the sales manager in Sure Solar, he communicated with us like sometimes it was almost instantly. That made the difference. The other 2 companies, as much as we don't have a beef against them, they, in one case it was 3 days before they got back to us to answer one email, and then another company, it was all too hard. It's like, obviously they're busy and our questions were a little bit annoying for them. Yep. So in the end it was, the responsiveness, answering the questions, the tough questions. Yep. Things like, do I really need this? Why does it cost so much to have a battery? And it sort of progressed from there, and so we really felt comfortable. But then, as you mentioned, when we had the initial install done, there was a bit of a technical issue. Yep. Because we have two phases coming into the property. So what we asked of Sure Solar was, we want to be able to use our battery, our solar system, the energy that we make, and use a battery across both phases. Yep. As if it was operating as one. Yep. But we didn't want to go back to one phase. Yep. And that's because of the situation in terms of our house setup. Yep.
And we thought we could do that initially, and what we found that there was some additional things that we needed to do, which we were pretty transparent with you. We said we got something wrong. We spoke with the manufacturer straight away.
Very much.
We've got, and the reason, I guess, to touch on why things took a little bit longer for some of the competitors is that it's not quite common that, most of us as electricians, our skill set, believe it or not, sort of stops at twisting wires together and putting them into inputs. We actually employ an engineer full-time back end, and he's very, very good at more complicated projects between what communication devices can work with what different configurations can work with what. So that gives us a little bit of a competitive edge where we can get you smart answers, appropriate answers properly, and even if we still make a mistake, we can quite quickly speak to the manufacturers and actually resolve that. And we did overcome the challenge of the batteries working together across dual phases. So just for context, most properties will be either single phase or 3 phase. So basically what that means is that you'll have one single line of electricity coming in, or you have 3 lines of electricity coming in. This property being a little bit unique, which I'll explain in a separate video, it actually has 2 lines of electricity coming in. So we needed to really work with the manufacturer to work out how we can actually make these battery requirements work to meet Alan and Sharon's requirements for the backup. So it's good that we did overcome that.
And I'd like to say that the engineer that you have, by our first interaction was, in trying to resolve the issue that we were having. What I did like was that we were told up front, there is a problem. We've identified it, and the engineer let me know before we found out. But we were assured that it may take 1 or 2 weeks, but we'll work it out because we're dealing with the supplier. The other thing I liked was that the SunGrow system that Sure Solar have provided for us, we found out that they have a head office in North Sydney. So it made us feel more comfortable because your engineer was talking to SunGrow in Australia. So their engineers and your engineer actually put their heads together to resolve the issue. Now, like most things, it turned out it wasn't a big fix. It was just a matter of what was the appropriate fix. Now, when that was done and it was fixed, we then had a little bit of an issue in terms of how the power sharing between the batteries was working. And that turned out to be a software configuration matter. But again, I reported that about 2 weeks after the final install. Took about 2 days. That was sorted out. Now it's been almost a year, and we haven't had any, in terms of the original 2 battery stacks and inverters, and we've had no problems ever since.
And I guess just to touch on that, it's when you're purchasing solar, it can be quite difficult, and I imagine the same for you, to reconcile between prices are fairly similar. The hardest thing to really reconcile is the quality of the after-sales service and support. Now you don't know that until you go through that process, right? So I guess one way to really try and identify that is just to ask the question about what sort of resources that a company has back end. I mean, for us, we've got a full-time engineer that is not on the tools, that's actually committed to answering these questions. So, if you buy a system like this from a one-man band, it's going to take a long time for that electrician. It's not his fault. It's just that they've become more complicated, right? It's going to take a while to get these things resolved. And they're not fit and forget anymore. We generally, 90% of the time, will install a solar and a battery system. You're going to have follow-up questions. These are not paid services that we offer, right? So we collect more customers, we get more phone calls, right? So we need to try and have resources in place to actually mitigate these risks and make sure that you've got your questions answered, because sometimes we put these in, some of the EPS circuits the backup circuits could need a little bit of a tweak. We may have some software issues. If there is a warranty issue, then we want to make sure we get that resolved quickly. Sometimes you can get some nuisance stripping with these. So there is a fair few things in the background that you do need some support with, and it sounds like you've got that.
Absolutely.
In a timely manner.
And about 3 months ago, there was a little bit of a glitch in the app, and I wasn't sure what the issue was. So I actually sent a screenshot to your sales manager, who then forwarded that on to the engineer. And within an hour, he had done an analysis remotely and determined that there was a update, and he fixed it for us. It didn't have to come out. The problem was resolved, and it was pretty impressive. The fact that it was for us, it was like an over-the-air update type of thing that was managed remotely. And that's I guess part of that whole good feeling we get in terms of that after service that you were talking about. And so much so, the benefit that we've got out of the original installation is what drove us to having a third stack put into which you guys are installing today. In terms of the benefits, you've mentioned it, haven't you? In terms of, do you want to?
Look, whenever everybody has a blackout, we just have a little flicker of light and we're back on again. And it's so easy that way.
We've had 3 big blackouts, haven't we? And
we
we've
look out on the street,
cruised
there's no
through
lights.
it. And Yeah.
Quite often you don't know, right? You get the neighbours knocking
So
on the door asking.
we have a security system that even if it's just a microsecond that the power blacks out, a little screen comes up in the middle, and it has a confirm, okay to proceed.
Yeah.
So that's how we know in the first instance we've had a blackout.
Yeah.
One of them was for about 6 hours, and we didn't know until we had the batteries. There is a thing that I refer to as power anxiety.
Yeah.
Because previously when you have a blackout, it's like, oh no, the fridge, we've just done the shopping, the meat's in the fridge, and then it's everybody keep the fridge closed, only open it just a little bit, So the last 3 main blackouts we've had, it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't mean to be sounding
correct. Yep.
But that's the reality. Like, we don't even think about it now.
And when you went through the setup, because obviously there's some consideration around you can't just back up the whole house. There's certain considerations around, which circuits you need to put on. How did you find that process of, I guess, one, and understanding what we meant by only some circuits can be on backup, and then really understanding the vital ones to go on those circuits?
So here's the thing. Your engineer, I think, has been quite marvellous in what he's actually designed here, because my understanding is that we actually, all of the power that we use, we had no limitations during those blackouts. So we didn't have anything that was actually favoured over the other, other than we just chose not to run certain things to give the fridge priority.
Yeah.
So and that was another wow factor, because I know that with other systems you have to dedicate the backup units, but we were using everything pretty much.
Yep.
But we had the capacity in our batteries to do that.
Correct. Yep.
And the thing that is very interesting, at first we were going to have the base, or when I say base, without the batteries. So we're going to have the panels on the roof and the inverter.
Yep.
So if you just talk in general terms, our budget was 25K. And we had worked out, based on the quotes that we got and the information from the various providers, we'd worked out that there was a 10-year payback period.
Yep.
Our basic numbers, our bill was $2,500 a year. Mm-hmm. We did have an old system, so $2,500 a year for our power. 10 years, $25,000.
Yep. So
that was the payback period. It just so happens that we have electric cars. We have 2 electric cars. We had gas, hot water system and stove.
Yep.
We got rid of the gas hot water system, got rid of the gas stove. We got rid of our fuel bills for running the cars. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing that, if you sort of work on the fact that we've got more than one equivalent system, for quite a chunk, in terms of investment and cost, and we're, for our system, you've got to be above that sort of 50K range. It is an investment. The payback period for us is just over 4 years.
Yep.
So, and that's based on saving us almost $15,000 a year in bills.
Yeah.
So
you've got the fuel costs in there and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. So $7,500 in fuel costs. And that was based on a year ago.
Yep.
So we're not taking inflation into account here.
Yep.
Then also $2,500 in gas.
Yep.
Sorry, $2,000.
Yes.
Apologies. $2,500 in the power consumption above what the old system was using. And then we get feedback from the tariff feed-in rate.
Yep.
We get between $900 and $1,200. So when you add all of that up, we're in that sort of 15K range. Now, 10 years warranty on these battery stacks. If you look at it from a point of view of we're saving $15,000 a year over a 10-year period, that's $150,000 that we've generated off our roof.
Yep. Yep.
So, at that, just after the 4 years, it's paid for itself.
Yep.
Now think of it this way, everything from there on is money in the bank.
Correct.
So it changed our whole thought process from doing what I think most would do, which we did originally, how much does the battery cost, divided by how much your annual bill of power costs, is that really worth it? Because you think that you're actually buying 8 years worth of power in advance, so the battery didn't do anything other than you paid for your power in advance.
Correct.
But it's actually not the way to look at it. The moment we understood it in terms of what does that do as a total collective, then it was a realisation that this is actually an investment.
Well, this is the case to basically electrify everything.
Correct.
Right? It
Correct.
makes sense to change from gas to electric.
Correct.
You've got your fuel costs, but you've obviously got 2 vehicles, so that that could be quite expensive with 2 petrol vehicles. I'm a big believer in behind the meter, which is basically where you use your energy. You should generate your energy so close to the source. We don't particularly need a solar farm, way out west to do that. If we can create the energy close to the source, it's going to be the most efficient way.
We feel like we're in control of our own power.
And you get to control it.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, and the app is great because with the app, it not only shows you, and I guess they all do it, but in terms of the total package for us, this is a really good app because not only does it show you what you're consuming, it also shows you the individual elements, but it also gives you history. So you can go back to any time from the beginning. You can look at over a period of a year, forever, a month, a week, a day. And what it's done is it's actually enabled us to understand our power usage. And, once we've finished today's upgrade, we actually won't have to worry about anything in terms of usage because we'll be slightly over powered for what we need.
And we just tweak a few things as we need to.
But in the previous arrangement, we're able to just adjust things based on that data that the app was giving us. That was really good. And I've got to tell you, it's changed our life, and that's a bit of a cliche, but how it's changed our life is that when there is a blackout, we don't stress. These are little things that don't seem much, but they all add up. Previously, we would have multiple, little power outs during the night, and you'd know because you wake up and the alarm clock numbers are flashing. Damn it, the clock it didn't go off, and that's because we had a power outage, or the microwave times flashing on the microwave. So we don't worry about those sort of things now. We've got to look after our elderly mum. We don't have to worry about if there is a blackout. At times we've had to have some life support system. You don't have to worry about that. And it boils down to also, you have overcast days, you're not going to make as much power. But this is where having the right configuration in terms of your battery coverage really kicks in. And what surprised us was how the panels are still generating power on an overcast day. Not as much, but still, it's actually quite an amount.
And that's the main reason for oversizing an inverter, right? So some people get concerned between I've got a 5 kilowatt inverter, but I've got 6.5 kilowatts of panels. How come I'm not producing 6.5 kilowatts of solar? And that's the exact reason is that you've got an average of, you oversize on the solar panels to cover things like overcast.
Especially if you've got the batteries, because we've learnt that lesson too by the configuration that Sure Solar put together for us. We realised the benefit of having oversizing the panels in terms of the total capacity because our priority is to fill the batteries, pay for the power from the sun during the day. In the night time we're feeding back off the batteries. Tell you something incredible, well for us it was incredible. During the entire night when it's dark, absolutely dark, and this is whether it's overcast or not, we make 16 watts of power off the roof. And we couldn't work out why, but then we worked it out. There's a street light just out the front here.
Yeah, right.
And how I knew that eventually that's what it was because these lights they're one of those ones that will go off for about a minute, then they come back on for a few minutes, then it goes off for a minute. I was actually looking at the app the power went off and it went down to zero.
Picked up the light.
The light came back on and went to 16 watts. Now 16 watts is nothing. The point I'm making is how sensitive are those panels to actually pick up the street light and generate 16 watts of power that's actually coming into the system. That just blew my mind.
And I guess you did mention a few things about obviously the size of the system, the price being quite expensive. it would sort of scare a few people off, but I guess to keep in mind that this wasn't all done in one city.
Correct.
And you've got, obviously we've got modular battery capacities here, we've got single inverter. This is our effectively third time back. We sort of went with the battery, and then you decided at the same time to add some more solar
That's
panels
right.
as well. So I guess, how did you find it being comfortable, and I guess what would you provide some advice to consumers if they wanted to, they're not so, a bit scared to spend as much money up front? How was it for you to stagger the system and sort of planning involved?
I think it was great on two counts, one financially and the other one in practical terms, because being newbies to the world of batteries in your house, there was it's a lot of theory and there's a lot of trust.
Yes.
You know, was this really an investment? You know, by doing it the way we did it, not only was it a good way to sort of, you know, put our feet in the water and test the waters, but it made us realise a whole lot of things that you don't get told, and that is that, you know, to look at it from the savings that are being made on your ancillary dependencies associated with the system. So, you know, the numbers speak for themselves. With this new unit we have in today, after that payoff period of 4.5 years, $15,000 a year is real money.
Yep.
That's not just, you know, a theoretical number.
Yep.
That's based on what we used to pay for petrol, for, you know, gas, and what we get back from the grid.
And you've done it non-inflationary as well, right?
Non-inflationary.
So I guess that, and you probably would have seen some of the proof of concept anyway once you did the first stage. Did you see some of the results in the bills when the first system came in?
Definitely.
Yeah, and I guess did that help with deciding to sort of expand on that system?
Yeah, the amount of money that we saved on the first set just encouraged us to go further.
So it builds the confidence. So you can still start on a smaller size system, but obviously keeping in mind how you can actually build on that in the future.
Well, here's the thing: if you work it over a 10-year period, so in 10 years. Investment for your money, the absolute, so break even, and then what we save in real money after that over a 10-year period is 100%, which is, you know, you can't say 10% per annum. It doesn't work, but in simplistic terms, it's actually better than money in the bank, given that we were paying for all of these things in terms of our bills. So that's stepping in that initial period of time where it was, you know, let's just suck it and see, gave us the confidence to then work it out a bit further, and then we realised that if we just expand this a bit more, it's actually now an investment, you know, that's going to pay back.
And I guess there's two things to this too, right? You've got, we do need to see some sort of return on investment. But one of the main drivers is actually, and you spoke about it quite a bit, is energy independence.
Yes.
As well, so you don't have the sort of anxiety of relying on that. So we
peace
find that
of
a lot of the ROI discussions are almost, return on investment discussions are almost not as important as energy security.
I think I used to think like that as well, but I got to say it's very nice. I'd put them equally. It's very nice.
At a 50-50,
Well, at 15 grand per year. That we've cut our bills by, and I can prove it to you with I can show you records. 15 grand per year. You know, like after we own it in 4.5 years, as I said, that's real money. So now all of a sudden, that's just as important, because what we've recognised is that by going to the full extent that we have, that is a true investment. So what we had previously got us over that, I guess, the power anxiety. What we're doing now is actually capitalising on that baseline investment to actually have it as pretty much a power farm on the roof that's actually paying. It's paying dividends back.
Well, it's great that you've got such good results, and you know we're obviously going to see and keep in touch with how those results go. And it's been a long discussion, but hopefully I think these things really help consumers from a real perspective. You know, you guys have gone through, you guys don't know us personally. It's been purely through the normal channels of finding a business and putting something together. So hopefully that helps everybody understand a little bit about the process and some of the thought processes behind from a consumer perspective. you're going to get competitors say you should do this, you should do that, this is the best, that's the best. And I know it becomes quite overwhelming for consumers to decide, and trust you spoke about is one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
You can go down a bit of a rabbit hole, and a lot of people will say, I'm the best, I'm the best. But you know, if just keep it, even when it's something is as complicated as this, and I think even you've touched on it as well, just keep it simple as possible to try and work these things out. Renewable energy makes sense, battery storage makes sense, electrification makes sense. It's just about making those steps to do it. It will become more common, but people like yourselves being at the sort of forefront of something of this size, I think is encouraging for the market. And thanks for having us out today, and thanks for having a chat.
No problem at all. Thank you.
It's our
Appreciate
pleasure.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.